In northern Gaza to help civilians leave. Telecommunication and internet down again in Gaza. Antony Blinken pays unannounced visit to Iraq. Says humanitarian pause could advance prospects of getting hostages released. Blinken to meet Turkish foreign minister on Monday.
Everyone would welcome the humanitarian pause because, again, it could advance things that we're all trying to accomplish.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing today, seeks dialogue and cooperation. India remains unbeaten at Cricket World Cup 2023, registers 8th consecutive win by defeating South Africa. Let's begin by getting you updates on Israel-Hamas conflict. A ray of hope had emerged in the month-long conflict. Amid pressure for a humanitarian pause, Israel stopped firing in northern Gaza for several hours, 2 days in a row, to create safe passage for civilians to move to the south. A military spokesperson said that Saturday and Sunday, Israeli troops, for many hours with prior notice and warning, we stopped firing in certain areas of northern Gaza, which is the main combat area, and we called on Palestinians to move south.
أنا موجود في شارع صلاح الدين جنوب حي الزيتون. إحنا اليوم فتحنا شارع صلاح الدين كممر إنساني لمواطنين شمال القطاع. أنا بطلب كمان مرة لكل مواطنين شمال القطاع ومدينة غزة، انزلوا جنوب وادي غزة. شمال القطاع ومدينة غزة هي منطقة حرب، منطقة خطيرة جدا. حماس المجرم الإرهابي بيستغلكم كدروع بشرية. انزلوا جنوب قطاع، انزلوا جنوب وادي غزة. احنا بنعطي السماح لإدخال المساعدات الإنسانية لجنوب وادي غزة.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Sunday said that U.S. officials were working to secure a humanitarian pause in Gaza that would advance several priorities, including getting more aid to Palestinians and also getting hostages held by Hamas released. Blinken, during an unannounced stop in Baghdad, stressed on the need to prevent spread of Israel-Hamas conflict.
It's important that the pause advance a number of things. One of them is hostages. We are intensely focused, the United States, Israel, every other country that has one of its citizens being held hostage by Hamas, to bring them home. There again, a humanitarian pause can also help advance that and create an environment in which we can do as much as possible for people who so desperately need the assistance.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will hold talks with his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan on Monday on the ongoing Gaza conflict. Blinken arrived in Turkey's capital Ankara on Sunday after a brief stopover in Baghdad. Blinken for the 3 days has been dashing around the West Asia trying to prevent a wider regional conflict. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh has sent us this report on the ground situation from Israel.
Even as Israel continued with its intensified military campaign inside the Gaza Strip, there were refugee camps. Jabalia and Al-Bureij were hit, and the casualties have now gone up to 10,000 of the number of Gazans dead since the intensified military campaign by Israel started. The number of injured is anywhere close to about 35,000. While all this is on, hectic diplomacy was on. U.S. Secretary of State or the U.S. Foreign Minister Antony Blinken was in Ramallah, the capital of Palestine in West Bank, and met with the President of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. The meeting, which is said to have lasted for about 45 minutes, There were no joint statements issued after the meeting, making it very clear that the Arab leaders and the United States is not on the same page when it comes to ceasefire. The Arab leaders, including Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, wants the US to effect a ceasefire, which the US is in no position because the Israelis are not listening to them. Antony Blinken is in the region in West Asia for with a message from President Biden for a humanitarian pause. But Benjamin Netanyahu, during his meeting with Blinken, told him very clearly there is no question that Israel will go in for a humanitarian pause, even as Israel allowed a 3-hour window for North Gazans to pass out to come out of the Gaza city on the Salah highway and move down to south. But there were hardly any movements. Clearly, in the days to come, the military campaign of Israel will intensify. Now the threat of how the Arab countries, especially the neighboring countries and non-state actors which are backed by Iran, react, and would it then escalate into a regional war? Amritpal Singh for DD India.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu disciplined a junior member of his cabinet who appeared to voice openness to the idea of Israel carrying out a nuclear strike on Gaza. Netanyahu's office issued a statement saying that the minister concerned, Heritage Minister Amieh Eliyahu from a far-right party in the coalition government, had been suspended from cabinet meetings until further notice. Earlier asked in a radio interview about a hypothetical nuclear option, Eliyahu said that that's one way. His remark drew swift condemnation from around the Arab world and was deemed objectionable by a US official. The Israeli military on Sunday said that it has exposed a network of Hamas tunnels, command centers and also rocket launchers beneath and adjacent to hospitals in northern Gaza. In a press briefing, Israel's chief military spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, gave no details of a reported attack in Lebanon, but he said that the military operations based on intelligence information and examines every event thoroughly. Army's spokesperson for Israel presented videos, photographs and audio recordings that demonstrated Hamas's strategy of using hospitals as cover and preventing civilians from leaving combat zones.
Hamas systematically exploits hospitals as part of its war machine. This is a satellite image of the hospital complex taken after the massacre of 7th of October. I'm going to zoom in on the area here. Okay, across the street, only 75 meters, 80 meters to the hospital. Here, the IDF identified a launch pad, meaning they launch rockets from here. I want to repeat it. They launch rockets on Israel 75 meters from an hospital. Why? They know precisely that if Israel will airstrike a launch pad like that, the hospital would be damaged.
The US Ohio-class submarine arrived in the Middle East on Sunday. Since October 7th, when Hamas launched its terrorist attack on Israel, the US military has bolstered its presence in the Middle East. Ohio-class submarines are nuclear-powered submarines which are capable of carrying cruise missiles and conducting special operations. They are designed for extended strategic deterrence patrols. In mid-October, the Pentagon ordered the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean near Israel to deter Iran or Hezbollah from joining the Israel-Hamas conflict. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has met with the leader of Tehran-backed Palestinian group Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. Iranian state media reported on Sunday, a day after a Hamas official said that they held a meeting in recent days. Iranian state media said that Haniyeh briefed Khamenei on the latest developments in the Gaza Strip, as well as the developments in the West Bank. Without elaborating when the meeting took place, Iran's Tasnim news agency said that the country's top authority, Khamenei, emphasized on Tehran's consistent policy of supporting the Palestinian forces against Israel. Israeli forensic teams are screening cars that were damaged during the October 7th Hamas attack, looking for evidence of human remains. The vehicles were collected in a junkyard in southern Israel in Netivot, where the forensic teams are also trying to identify owners of the cars and what might have happened to them during the attack. At least 1,400 Israelis were killed in the deadliest day of the nation's 75-year history.
This is one of the last places where you can actually see the damage that was done, because we're clearing out a lot. But it hurts, it hurts your heart every time you walk in or every time you see this, because you know just how many people died in these cars and how many people were hurt, on the 7th of October. It's a date that we'll remember probably for the rest of our lives.
Jordan's Air Force personnel airdropped urgent medical aid to the Jordanian field hospital in Gaza early on Monday. A Royal Air Force plane dropped urgent medical aid using parachutes to the Jordanian field hospital in Gaza. Supplies there were about to run out due to the delay of delivering aid through Rafah crossing. A French military aircraft landed in Egypt with 18 tons of humanitarian supplies, including food, medication and generators for Gaza on Saturday. Vital supplies were sent through the military plane. As a mission to support Gaza hospitals, France also said it was sending a naval vessel to the eastern Mediterranean. Many foreign nationals were stuck at Gaza's Rafah border after evacuations were suspended on Saturday. The suspension came as a result of an Israeli strike on an ambulance in Gaza transporting injured people. Efforts were underway to resume evacuation of injured Gazans and foreign nationals through the Rafah crossing. Israel President welcomed the new U.S. ambassador to Israel, Jacques Liu, on Sunday, receiving him at the president's house in Jerusalem. Liu noted that he had arrived at a difficult time and reiterated that the U.S. stands with Israel. Let's get to updates from Russia-Ukraine conflict now. At least 5 people were injured in Russian missile strikes on Odessa late on Sunday. One of the city's principal art galleries, Odessa National Fine Arts Museum, was badly damaged in the attack. The museum, in one of the oldest palaces of Odessa, housed before the war more than 10,000 pieces of art, including paintings by some of the best-known Russian and Ukrainian artists of late 19th and early 20th century. Russian military forces carried out air attacks, in fact air strikes, on a drone warehouse in Syria's Idlib governorate, the Russian Interfax news agency reported on Sunday. No information about the scale of the damage or potential casualties was available. The Syrian army accused rebels, calling them Islamist jihadists, for attacks on government-held areas in Idlib and Aleppo provinces, and denied indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas in the areas under rebel control. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the U.S. to provide more funding to help his forces counter Russia and invited former U.S. President Donald Trump to fly in to see the scale of the conflict for himself. In the interview airing on Sunday, Zelensky invited former U.S. President Donald Trump, a Republican, to visit Ukraine and see the fallout of the conflict. Zelensky said that he will need 24 minutes to explain to President Trump that he cannot manage this war. Trump has been sharply critical of U.S. support for Kyiv and has said that he could end the war in 24 hours if re-elected. You're watching DD India News Hour. Up next, a short break. But after the break, rescue and relief efforts continue in quake-hit Jajarkot in Nepal. India sends earthquake relief of medical equipment and supplies. As Delhi's air quality continues to be severe, Stage 4 of the Graded Response Action Plan activated in the national capital. And 8th edition of Vizag Navy Marathon receives overwhelming response in the city on Sunday.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. India has sent a plane carrying humanitarian aid to Nepal as the Himalayan nation reels after a deadly earthquake. Meanwhile, the government has decided to provide rupees 200,000 each to those who died due to the earthquake that struck Nepal's Jajarkot and Rukum Paschim districts on Friday night. Also, the Nepalese government is providing free medical treatment to those injured in the earthquake. Work of search and rescue of those affected by the earthquake has reached its final. Military helicopters have also been deployed to the quake-stricken areas to save the seriously injured. The death toll has reached 158. Officials fear the death toll could rise as first responders had reached the hilly area near the epicenter and began searching for survivors. Malaysian Foreign Minister Dr. Zamri Abdul Qadir arrived in India for a two-day visit. The visiting dignitary will co-chair the 6th India-Malaysia Joint Commission meeting with Indian counterpart Dr. S. Jaishankar during his two-day visit. The Joint Commission meeting will review the progress of enhanced strategic partnership with Malaysia in several areas. He will also call on Indian Vice President. The visit will provide an opportunity to comprehensively review the bilateral relations and to explore ways to further deepen and strengthen them. The heads of the border guarding forces of India and Nepal will meet today in New Delhi to discuss crucial issues related to the borders. This will be the 7th annual coordination meeting between Sashastra Seema Bal and Nepal's Armed Police Force and is scheduled to take place from November 6th to 8th. The talks at the level of two heads of forces serve as a crucial platform for both the forces to engage in discussions on border-related matters. The meeting is aimed to strengthen the coordination between the two border guarding forces for more effective management of open and unfenced Indo-Nepal border. The last coordination meeting was held at Kathmandu in September 2022. First Australia-India Education and Skill Council meeting is being held on Monday at Indian Institute of Technology in the western city of Gandhinagar. The meeting is being chaired jointly by Indian Minister for Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Dharmendra Pradhan, Australian Minister for Education, Jason Clare, and Minister of Skills and Training, Brendan O'Connor. Now, this is for the first time that education and skilling is being brought under the same institutional forum. This meeting will provide a platform for academic and skill experts to discuss a wide range of mutually agreed priorities with the ultimate aim of shaping the future of education and skilling in both our nations. The overall air quality in Delhi continues to remain in the critical category today. As per official data, the overall air quality in the national capital Delhi stood in the critical category with an AQI, that is Air Quality Index, of 471 at 7 a.m. As per an analysis conducted by Delhi Pollution Control Committee, the national capital is witnessing the highest level of pollution between 1st and 15th of November, coinciding with a spike in stubble burning incidents in Punjab and Haryana. To combat this, the Delhi Fire Service collaborated with the government to spray water at hotspots in an effort to alleviate the situation. All right, our correspondent Jessica Taneja is joining us with more from New Delhi. Jessica, good morning. We've just given an account of how hazardous is it to breathe in the national capital, and the point where you are standing is evident of that as well. Spell out more details as to what is the IMD predicting in the next few days.
Well, first things first, no rains in the next 7 days, so no respite. It's going to continue to be like this. The wind speed has improved slightly, but not to the extent where we would expect the temperatures, of course, and the weather conditions to favor the kind of crisis we're in at the moment. What we do know is that the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has chaired an emergency meeting as we speak to look into the measures and the kind of implementation on ground. As you pointed out, water is being sprinkled on the streets. There are task forces being prepared to do more work than usual. Construction activities have so far stopped. The vehicular emissions, and especially the ones that do not comply with the Pollution Control Board, also have been fined. So a lot of these small measures, but nothing significant to take us out of this crisis, Preeti.
All right, Jessica, did you also get to talk to the Delhiites on the streets? I mean, how are they coping up with this?
Well, they're certainly not coping with this well. I have spoken to a few people here. Not many people are in the streets. Mostly people prefer to stay indoors today. As you know, schools are shut, as well as government employees. At least 50% of their workforce is working from home. So there are a lot of measures here in place where we don't see too many people on the streets. But unfortunately, the sanitation workers and the rickshaw pullers, the auto rickshaw guys, all of them on the streets working because they simply do not have any other means of livelihood. So they continue to breathe this toxic air, and for the rest, there is, of course, AC rooms and air purifiers.
All right, Jessica, we'll leave it here. Thank you for joining in with those details. To address the concerning air pollution levels in the National Capital Region, the Commission of Air Quality Management has initiated critical action. The Central Pollution Control Panel has activated an 8-point action plan within Stage 4 of the Graded Response Action Plan with immediate implementation. The abrupt increase in the air quality index is linked to adverse weather conditions, significant number of farm fires and slow-moving northwesterly winds that can carry pollutants into Delhi. Our correspondent Tapas Bhattacharya gets us this report.
I am currently at one of the iconic places in India. Right now, I am at India Gate, and interestingly, it's covered with smog. I can show you this is the India Gate, and it is absolutely, as you can see, it's covered with smog. The pollution level in Delhi right now is in a severe category. The AQI level, which determines the pollution level in any place, is currently very high. In Delhi, it is approximately over 470, and it is expected to remain the same in the next few days. Now, what has changed? Delhi and the Central Pollution Control Board has now implemented the GRAP 4 system in Delhi and the whole National Capital Territory of Delhi. The reason why GRAP 4 is important because earlier GRAP 1 and 3 were not that effective, and GRAP 4 is restrictive in many ways. Now, what does GRAP 4 entails? GRAP 4 means that the entry and exits of the heavy-duty vehicle, apart from the one which requires which are essential in nature, will be stopped and will be manned and will be regulated. So that is one. The second point is that the government, both center as well as state, are told to limit the workforce to almost 50%. Schools, especially the primary schools, have been closed in Delhi, and as per the National Pollution Control Board, they want that school and colleges will also be should be regulated. As of now, as I mentioned, that the GRAP 4 is implemented in Delhi and NCR region. What is also entails is that a lot of restriction, especially in the construction activities, will be put in place. And as I said, it is high time that everybody, all the stakeholders come together to make sure that this menace of pollution can be tackled effectively. With camera person Ashish, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
On Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call, Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, Kolkata, initiated a cleanliness drive. They cleaned the water bodies, recycled film sets and spruced up the campus. Let's take a look to know more.
Responding to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's clarion call, Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, Kolkata, has announced a 3-point cleanliness initiative as part of the Swachhata Abhiyan. Under the aegis of this initiative, the Central Institute first cleared up the water hyacinth covering a large water body located at the campus. The lake is being used for commercial pisciculture. While the water body is being used for breeding fish, the banks are dotted with a number of coconut trees.
First initiative is the cleaning of a lake water body. We have a very beautiful natural lake inside the campus. Approximately 75,000 square feet of lake area, water body was completely cleaned out of wild grass, and we are right now putting the fodder for the fishes underwater to grow. And also there are beautiful coconut trees inside the campus, so we are also maintaining those coconut trees so that we can give these coconut trees and this lake water for pisciculture purpose, fishery, for growing the fishes, and also to tender coconut to outside agencies so that SRFTI can earn some revenue out of it, and we can make this campus self-sustaining.
As part of the second phase, the students of film and television studies are recycling and reusing waste materials to build the sets for their production.
The second initiative we have taken is the best out of waste activity. Under this initiative, the students of our institute came together and they collected the abandoned scrap from the campus, abandoned waste like wood, metal, plastic scrap. They collected it and they made innovative art material out of these abandoned scrap so that they can use this for their shooting purpose. And there was approximately 30,000 rupees of saving during this initiative, and the production cost of the film reduced by 30,000 rupees. So this was one innovative process we did, the best out of waste.
In the third step, the initiative entails cleaning up of the campus and sprucing up the surroundings. The green drive includes beautification strategies like changing the look of the dustbins, which hold all the trash and help maintain cleanliness in the campus.
And now we take a look at other stories that are making it to the headlines from across India. Specialized troops of Spear Corps, Indian Army, rehearsed combat free fall and delivery of logistics by guided precision aerial delivery system using aerial platforms to validate rapid response capabilities. The 8th edition of Vizag Navy Marathon in Visakhapatnam saw an exceptional turnout, with over 12,000 participants of all ages, including children, women, youth and senior citizens, as well as naval personnel from India and abroad, running along the beach road. In Srinagar, potters craft significant quantity of earthen lamps for Diwali. A young Kashmiri potter fulfills a substantial order of 20,000 lamps, working diligently to meet the deadline. A grand Deepotsav has been celebrated before Diwali by BAPS Sri Swaminarayan Mandir in Vadodara. The devotees celebrated by praying for ethical economic prosperity and success in their careers. A quick break ahead, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Donald Trump set to testify in a civil fraud trial on Monday. Bilateral meeting between Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Chinese President Xi Jinping to take place today. And at COP28, leaders to debate stricter guidelines and corporate commitment as only small number meet the strict net zero criteria.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
That never stops, where information shapes our reality. One app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world, one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DT India News Hour and I'm Preeti. A quick relook at the top stories once again. Israel says it stopped firing for many hours in northern Gaza to help civilians leave. Telecommunication and internet down again in Gaza. Antony Blinken pays unannounced visit to Iraq, says humanitarian pause could advance the prospect of getting hostages released. Blinken to meet Turkish Foreign Minister on Monday. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese meets Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing today, seeks dialogue and cooperation. India remains unbeaten at Cricket World Cup 2023, registers eighth consecutive win by defeating South Africa. The United States, South Korea and Japan have agreed to launch a high-level consultative group on countering North Korean cyber activities. South Korea's presidential office said on Monday that such cyber activities finance North's unlawful weapons program. The announcement comes after the leaders of the three countries agreed at a summit in August at Camp David that they would establish a new trilateral working group for North's cyber threats. Security advisors of the three countries also agreed to hold quarterly meetings under the new framework. All right, to spell out more details, senior correspondent Chris Gilbert is joining us with more from Tokyo. Chris, good morning. What more details do we know about these talks?
Good morning. Well, as you said, they're looking to really boost their coordination, their cooperation, their strategy to effectively prevent any escalation in security threats or cybersecurity events in the future. The fact that they're even having these talks is fruit born from an expedited warming of ties between Japan and South Korea over the last year, at least at the managerial level, at the executive level. The US is able to get them into the room together for these kinds of talks, and what they're looking to do is make them even more regular. That is the main takeaway from these security chief talks last week, is that they want to now meet quarterly to discuss global cybersecurity threats, with an eye, of course, on North Korea. The main concern there being funding of their weapons program or some kind of revenue source for their illegal weapons program, believing that sanctions monitors are saying that cryptocurrency theft by hackers in North Korea is largely contributing to their weapons program, and that is something that these three countries very much want to stamp out. There's no details on how they're going to yet, but that is why they're going to be talking every 3 months or every couple of months for the next few years.
All right, Chris. Now, Japan is also hosting a G7 foreign ministers meeting this week. Do we see threats from North Korea likely to come up?
It may very well come up. It's unlikely to be top of the agenda for a few reasons. The first is that in Japan's, I think last year in December, revised national security strategy, China leapfrogged North Korea as Japan's #1 perceived threat in the region, and Washington, D.C.'s national security strategy says the same thing. The second reason is that it's been a reasonably quiet year for North Korea in terms of its illegal ballistic missile launches. In 2022, of course, we saw a record year, some accounts showing 73 to 90 missiles launched by North Korea. We've seen about half that many this year, and the other reason, of course, is the ongoing bombardment of Gaza going on at the moment by Israel is likely to effectively hijack the conversation at this meeting. However, when it does come to the Indo-Pacific, when it does come to North Korea, Japan is going to very much be looking for assurances from the United States that this part of the world remains a foreign policy focus. There has been speculation from some analysts that the military resources from the US going to Ukraine and going to Israel may somewhat deplete the military resources coming to this region. And so Japan is going to be looking towards Antony Blinken and the US for reassurances that this region is very much a priority.
All right, Chris, thank you for joining in with those details. And the conflict in the Middle East is expected to dominate the agenda when the top diplomats from G7 countries meet in Tokyo on Tuesday, as put forth by our correspondent. The foreign ministers are wrapping up a year of G7 meetings as Japan looks to successfully conclude its presidency of the group. Chris Gilbert gets us the details.
Well, when the G7 foreign ministers meet here in Tokyo next week, it is going to be the conflict in the Middle East that will be top of the agenda. That wasn't always the case. When Japan's foreign minister Yoko Kamikawa originally called this summit back in September, the goal was simply an end-of-year catch-up, a wrap of all the meetings, G7 meetings so far, a catch-up on how member countries are doing on their goals and their priorities stated in those meetings, such as countering perceived Chinese military assertiveness while maintaining independent economic and diplomatic ties with Beijing, supporting Ukraine in its conflict against Russia, cooperating on climate change and AI regulation and a myriad of other topics. But it is going to be Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza, democratic calls around the world for a ceasefire. These issues are going to be discussed. Japan is going to be concerned. It is going to be wary of analysts' speculations that the U.S. resources, the military resources going towards Israel at the moment and going towards Ukraine at the moment, may be depleting military resources that could be coming in this direction towards Japan, towards South Korea, and the U.S.'s ability, pledged ability to protect Japan and South Korea's interests in what it calls a free and open Indo-Pacific. Japan is going to be looking for reassurances from U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken that this part of the world remains a priority for the U.S., and certainly a meeting that South Korea is going to be watching very closely as well. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will hold bilateral talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday. He has in fact become the first Australian leader to visit China since 2016 when he landed in Shanghai on Saturday. Albanese's government has taken credit for stabilizing ties with China since coming to office last year. DD India correspondent Patrick Falk reports from Singapore on this.
Well, this is an opportunity really to get ties back on track, and that appears to be something that's very much welcome by the Chinese side following years of acrimony between the governments. And as a matter of fact, there was an article in the state-run Global Times lauding the resumption of summit dialogue. That article also took aim at Anthony Albanese's predecessor, Scott Morrison, accusing him of being responsible for the securitization, polarization and demonization of this bilateral relationship. There is a sense, though, that the relationship can really never get back to where it once was, and it's very much headed in a direction that is more practical now. And as the Australian Prime Minister said over the weekend in Shanghai, the big sticking point for Beijing, really, where Australia is concerned, is its deepening security alliance with Washington, which very much counters its own regional security interests. And Beijing blames the US also for sowing discord between China and Australia. This is something that would help Beijing very much at a time when its own economy is really suffering from quite a severe slowdown. Notably, as some observers have pointed out, the trade restrictions that Beijing imposed on Australia backfired in many ways, because it didn't bring Canberra closer to China. Instead, it pushed it closer towards the US. So this is something that makes a lot of sense for China to try and mend that relationship as much as it is for Canberra to do the same.
In Bangladesh, intercity connectivity got disrupted on the first day of the 48-hour countrywide blockade program. The blockade is being enforced by the main opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party and its allies to force Sheikh Hasina's party to quit and hold elections under a neutral administration. The 48-hour-long blockade sparked stray incidents of violence, where more than 15 buses were burnt by the mob throughout the country. The blockade has affected public transport, which also created scarcity of basic essentials. 228 platoons of Border Guard Bangladesh have been deployed across the country to maintain law and order during the blockade. DD India correspondent Naval Singh Parmar joins us with more from Dhaka. Naval, we've just given an account of how interconnectivity got disturbed in Bangladesh owing to the blockade. Let us get the latest first from you on this.
Yes, actually, this is the second phase of a blockade. Earlier, BNP and its allies party like Jamaat-e-Islami enforced the 3-day blockade from 31st October to 2nd November. During that period, there were a low movement on roads and in cities. But in the second phase of this blockade, cities are by and large having a not minimum, but it is moderate level of traffic is there in the cities. But the intercity connectivity, which the roads which are passing through the countryside, they are disrupted. And there are mobs and violence on the roads which connect the district place or the district with the another district and the major city like Dhaka and Chittagong. So the connectivity between the major city and the countryside is disrupted due to the blockade. And due to that, the essential commodity which is coming to Dhaka from the other part of Bangladesh is now connection line is disrupted. So the essential commodity is in scarcity in the Dhaka, and due to that, the price is increasing. At the same time, those areas which are producing the fruits and vegetables and milk for the major city like Dhaka and Chittagong, they are facing a problem with the buyer. They don't find buyer because there is no transportation available between these cities and the countryside and the cities. So this is the situation on the second day. Otherwise, the traffic in the Dhaka and the Chittagong and other cities, it is moderate. There is there are very few buses on the road. Public transport is very thin. But the auto rickshaws and the rickshaws, which is very popular in Dhaka, are there on the roads, and even motorcycles. People are using private vehicle to as a convenience from their home to the office or school or business place.
All right, Naval Singh, thank you so much for joining in and giving us those details. And from Bangladesh, we now turn focus to US. Donald Trump is due to testify today in a New York civil trial accusing the former president of fraudulently inflating his wealth. State prosecutors are seeking to bar Trump from doing business in his home state and $250 million in damages. US correspondent Ira Spitzer gets us more.
New York Attorney General Letitia James has accused Donald Trump and others at the Trump Organization of inflating the value of assets by billions of dollars in order to obtain better terms on loans and insurance policies. Trump has denied those charges and called the proceedings biased, setting up a courtroom confrontation. Last week, Trump's two sons, Donald Jr. and Eric Trump, both testified and tried to distance themselves from the accounting aspects of the family business. That may prove more difficult for the former president since he is the owner of the Trump Organization, whose companies are involved in real estate and other ventures, and ran it until becoming president in 2016. Even before the trial, the judge ruled that fraud had been committed, so now it's essentially a matter of determining how serious the penalties should be, something that will also be decided by the judge and not a jury. Because it's a civil trial, Trump can't go to jail, but prosecutors have sought to fine him and others as much as $250 million and revoke the organization's ability to continue operating in New York, where it has properties such as the Trump Tower in Manhattan. It's one of several trials that Trump is facing as he seeks to regain the presidency in elections next year. The former president is currently the frontrunner to be the Republican Party's nominee to challenge Joe Biden. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
Half of the world's largest listed companies have set a target to achieve net zero emissions by 2050, but only a small number meet the strict guidelines set by the United Nations. A report by Net Zero Tracker Consortium, which includes Oxford University, reveals that 4% of the company targets meet the criteria set by UN's Race to Zero campaign. Only 37% of the companies have targets that include Scope 3 emissions, while just 13% have quality thresholds for the use of carbon offsets. Now, this will be a key topic at the upcoming COP28 climate talks in Dubai. A look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. Following up to the events when a man drove through the airport barrier, Hamburg police officials evacuated the airport urgently. They then cordoned off the area to search for the person. After that, the suspect was arrested and the airport was again made operational for the passengers. In the latest attacks, more than 20 people were killed after shells hit the market in Omdurman during an intense exchange of fire between the two sides. Located in a suburb of the Sudanese capital Khartoum, Omdurman has witnessed fierce battles since clashes for power started in April this year. A car crashed in the front lawn of a pub in Dalesford, a rural town in Australia, killing 5 people, including 2 children. Several others were injured, including the 66-year-old driver who was admitted in the hospital. Formal identification of victims is pending, while the cause of the incident is yet to be determined. A quick break ahead, but after the break, Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company xAI is set to release its inaugural AI model. India secures Women's Asian Champions Trophy title second time by defeating Japan 4-0. And world number 1, Novak Djokovic cruises to record extending 7th Paris Masters title.
Turning crisis into opportunity. Transforming ideas into action. Stories of real change. Tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such change makers.
Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Up next, we get you updates from the world of business. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company xAI is set to release its inaugural AI model named Grok. In a series of posts, Musk said that the competitor to ChatGPT would be made available to premium subscribers on his X platform after testing. Musk also revealed that Grok aims to create artificial intelligence tools that assist humanity in its quest for understanding and knowledge, and that Grok has been designed to answer questions with a bit of wit. Top oil exporters Saudi Arabia and Russia have decided to prolong their additional voluntary oil output cuts until the end of this year. The two countries have confirmed that they will review the cuts next month to consider the possibility of extending, deepening or increasing the reductions. The decision to extend the voluntary output cuts aligns with the ongoing efforts of OPEC Plus countries to maintain market stability. OPEC Plus has been implementing production cuts since last year. These measures are seen as proactive action to prevent any potential destabilization of the oil market. The British government, led by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, plans to introduce legislation mandating annual North Sea oil and gas licensing rounds. This move aims to provide certainty to the industry during the transition to greener energy. In July, the government announced the granting of over 100 new licenses, and further details regarding the legislation will be outlined by King Charles in the government's legislative agenda. Sunak assured that the new licenses align with the environmental targets, and future licensing rounds will be conditional upon domestic production being greener than imported alternatives. The legislation aims to provide clarity and certainty, with domestic energy playing a crucial role in transition to net zero. Sunak hopes to gain positive momentum ahead of a potential national election next year, differentiating the government from the opposition Labour Party on green issues. Multi-energy company Total Energies has raised security vigilance for its operations in the Middle East by 1 level. Given the current situation in Gaza, the company has amped up security, though it is still continuing operations in Iraq. The company recently made deals with Philippines for rooftop solar panels and renewed a deal Oman for LNG supplies. The company deals in oil, gas and energy services, aiming to achieve carbon neutrality in all its global operations. A quick look at sports now. Cricket first. India beat second place South Africa by 243 runs to register their eighth win, in fact, of the World Cup at Eden Gardens. The men in blue bundled out Africa on a paltry score of 83 runs. Ravindra Jadeja took 5 wickets, while Virat Kohli hit his 49th ODI ton. Let's get to a recap of how it all happened in this post-match report.
In yet another remarkable performance by Team India, this time at Kolkata's Eden Gardens, India registered its 8-0 clean sweep at the ongoing edition of ICC Men's Cricket World Cup group stage encounter. In a clash that was seen as one of the most intense battle at this World Cup, South Africa trembled in the power play itself that started with Quinton de Kock's early wicket. South Africa got off to a disastrous start in the 327-run chase against India. Team South Africa were reduced to 35 for 3 at the end of first power play itself. Mohammad Siraj removed in form Quinton de Kock for 5, Ravindra Jadeja packed Temba for 11 and Mohammad Shami removed Aiden for 9. Shortly after this, the duo once again combined and removed Hendrik Klaasen and Rezi van der Dussen to reduce South Africa to 40 for 5 in just 13.1 overs. Talking about Team India, it was a double delight for the fans as Virat Kohli hit a century to equal Sachin Tendulkar's ODI century record and India ensured complete dominance over the tournament. Kohli's century led the way for India, putting up a mammoth total of 326 for 5 in 50 overs. India came out all guns blazing with Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill. The run rate slowed down as Keshav Maharaj kept a check on the batters throughout the middle overs after the openers fell. But Kohli and Shreyas Iyer soldiered through that phase. The stand finally ended on 134 of 158 when Iyer fell to Lungi Nagidi on 77 of 87. KL Rahul fell soon thereafter and Surya Kumar Yadav then played an entertaining cameo, smashing 22 in 14 balls, and Ravindra Jadeja then did the same. The all-rounder stayed unbeaten on 29 of 15, while Kohli at the other end got to his milestone. He finished unbeaten on 101 of 121. Since then, the Indian bowlers have started off doing what they do best. Team India is now all set to face Team Netherlands on 12th of November at M. Chinnaswamy Stadium. Narayan Singh's report for DD India.
It's raining good news for India in other sports as well. The Indian women's hockey team trounced Japan 4-0 to win the Women's Asian Champions Trophy in Ranchi on Sunday. Now, this is Team India's second Women's Asian Champions Trophy title in history, having won the first in 2016 in Singapore. Japan, who came into the game as the defending champions and were looking to take revenge for the loss suffered in the bronze medal match at the recently concluded Asian Games in China, got comprehensively beaten. Coastal rowing is part of the national games for the first time, but it is also getting bigger as it has been included in the Los Angeles Olympics to be played in 2028. Come Olympics, and India will look for elusive Olympic medal in rowing. Indian rowers performed really well in the recently concluded Asian Games and Asian Para Games. DD India correspondent Suchitra Bhardwaj gets us this report from Goa.
Coastal rowing is part of the national games for the first time. In the 37th National Games in Goa, the sprint coastal rowing is included with men's solo, women's solo and mixed doubles taking place. Coastal rowing is getting bigger now and also included in LA Olympics. Tournament director Ismail Beg is happy that coastal rowing is finally taking place in India.
Yes, really, you did very well in the last Asian Games. We won the 5 medals, and after we won the silver in the para also. This is another feather in our cap, the coastal also including. We are happy to say this including the Los Angeles. We have the next Olympics. We have to prepare for that. India has a lot of good beaches, a good coastal area.
US-based international rower Gail Zulema de Miranda is making waves in coastal rowing international events in the past 2 years. Based in the US, the rower has her roots in India. Born in Goa, Gail is the granddaughter of late cartoonist Mario de Miranda. Her father is from Goa, while her mother is American. She happily agreed to participate in the coastal rowing event in the national games representing her state, Goa.
I'm aiming high for the Olympics, both Paris Olympics and the LA Olympics in 28. More coastal is actually the new category in LA 28, which I'm very excited about. So I'll be hopefully racing for coastals in 28 and then flat water, hopefully for Paris.
Indian rowers performed really well in the recently concluded Asian Games and Asian Para Games. India is still looking for that elusive Olympic medal in rowing. Coastal rowing is the next best thing, so Indian rowers have started taking it seriously now.
Coastal rowing is included in the LA Olympics, so it's important that Indian rowers start taking part in coastal rowing and start preparing for LA Olympics as soon as possible. With camera person Sumit Dhiman, this is Suchitra reporting for DD India from Goa.
On to tennis now. World number one Novak Djokovic cruised to a record-extending 7th Paris Masters title on Sunday. It is the Serb's 40th Masters title in total and his 97th on the ATP Tour as he beat unseeded Bulgarian Dimitrov 6-4, 6-3 in the French capital. With that, we end this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.